The Tao never does anything. Yet through it all, things are done. If powerful men and women could center themselves in it, the whole world would be transformed by itself, in its natural rhythms. People would be content with their simple, everyday lives, in harmony.
Or with one, there are hundreds of Buddhas. The one we call Gautama is just the historical Buddha that everybody knows about. But one Buddha leads to another, because as a result of his relationships with people, he turns them into Buddhas too, awakened people. Now you meet one of these people, and he's going to give you a rough time. But one of the Buddhas running around these days is Krishnamurti. And Krishnamurti absolutely destroys everybody's religion. Why do you believe this? Why are you hanging on to that? Why do you want to insist that this idea is so? See? And he shows you that all your fixed formulations, all the ideas to which you cling, are spurious. And Buddhism was one of the ways of doing just that. So one might say simply this, to try and sum up what Buddhism is about. The word Buddha is derived from the root Bud in Sanskrit, B-U-D-H, which means to be awake. So the Buddha is the awakened man, the man who woke up. What does he wake up from? Obviously a dream. And what kind of a dream is this? Well, I would call it a state of hypnosis. And this state of hypnosis, although I'm using hypnosis in a rather archaic sense of the word, is a state of being entranced, spellbound, fascinated, and this is called, in Sanskrit, avidya. A-V-I-D-Y-A. Vidya is knowledge in Sanskrit. And it is the root from which we get videre in Latin, to see, and so vision in English. So putting the A in front of it means non. Avidya, not seeing, ignorance, where you see but you ignore everything that you're not looking at. When you put the beak of a chicken on a white chalk line, and the chicken is fascinated with that and can't get away from the chalk line, that's avidya. So in the same way, our beaks were put on a chalk line when we were hypnotized into the notion of attending to life by conscious attention alone, by the spotlight to the exclusion of the floodlight. And so we began to imagine that we were separate individuals. What is called in Buddhism Sakhaya Drishti, the view of separateness. And a Buddha is one who has overcome that. He is awakened from that illusion, from that state of hypnosis, and he knows that well, I can't put what he knows in any positive terms. Buddhism has no doctrines at all that you have to believe in. I don't care what background you come from, whether you're a Roman Catholic or at one extreme or a logical positivist at the other. Both are clinging to something, you see? And so the method of Buddhism is to knock out the underpinnings and say, well, not only do we not believe in anything, we don't even believe in not believing in anything. You know, you crawl into a hole and pull the hole in after you. But in this case, you do the exact opposite of that. That's a defensive move, to crawl into a hole. In this way, you crawl into great space and then pull the space out after you. And to go through this is pretty rough, because you can do it on what seems at first to be a merely intellectual level. So you can engage a group of people in a discussion, And you can start, whenever they propose an idea that is their sort of guiding principle of life, you demolish it, show that it doesn't hold water. And step by step you unearth, by talking with them, what are the fundamental ideas they're operating on. Everybody is. Everybody is a philosopher. Everybody has metaphysics, although they may not know what it is, because they've never examined it. But by this method you bring it out, and you demolish it. And this suddenly, what seemed like a very nice intellectual discussion, turns into sheer murder. People get really anxious. They develop all the trembles and the symptoms of extreme anxiety. And so they finally say to the guru, the teacher, well, heaven's sakes, what do you believe in? He says, I'm not proposing anything. I didn't set anything up. Well, how do you navigate? How do you exist? This is what's the problem. Because you see, what we're moving from, as I suggested a moment ago, we're moving from a state of affairs where we're accustomed to navigation on land to a state of affairs where we're in the water. And this is very critical for today because the impact of modern science on Western culture has been very similar to this. In Christianity, we sing hymns like How Firm a Foundation and Rock of Ages, Ein fester Burg, a mighty fortress is our God. We've something to stand on. The church's one foundation is Jesus Christ, her Lord, you know. And it's this firm thing. All right, suddenly all that disappears or becomes implausible. And we find ourselves swimming or sinking. Now, when you find that you're living in the midst of the universe of relativity, well, there's nothing you can hold on to. You've got to learn how to swim. And to swim, you've got to relax and stop grabbing. So this is what Buddhism does. When it says it's the art of let go of non-attachment. Non-attachment doesn't mean that you lose your appetite for dinner. It means simply that you stop grabbing. You get rid of stickiness. Stickiness in the sense that, for example, when a wheel has an axle that's too tight and it sticks, you want to loosen it up a bit. You don't want it too loose. You don't want it floppy. Like a lot of people, when you tell them to relax, they become like a limp rag. It's not relaxing. Relaxing is having still tone. But it's a middle way. So this is entirely what Buddhism is about. It's about learning, for example, if I may put it in a vivid way, when you were born, you were kicked off a precipice. And there's nothing that can stop you falling. And although there are a lot of rocks falling with you, with trees growing on them and all sorts of things like that, you can cling to one of those rocks, if you like, as it goes down with you for safety. But it's not safe. Nothing is safe. Everything is falling apart. Everything is in a state of change. And there's no way of stopping it. And when you are really resigned to that, when you really accept that, then there's nothing left to be afraid of. And when there's nothing left to be afraid of, and you've given everything up, and you know that even, a lot of people in religion cling to suffering because they know they are right as long as they hurt. Oh, I bless the good Lord for my boils, for my mental and bodily pains. For without them my faith all congeals, and I'm doomed to hell's ne'er-ending flames. There are a lot of people who know that they're right so long as they suffer. But that's an illusion too. Even suffering offers no security. Even suicide offers no security in Buddhism, you see. There is no security. You simply have to face this fact that everything is in flux and go with it. And so the question then is simply how to convince people of this, if anybody wants to be convinced. It's not the sort of thing you shove down people's throats. You don't convert them to this. Because if they don't want to be converted, they won't let go. Buddhism therefore involves a very special relationship between the questioner and the person to whom the question is addressed, the pupil and the teacher. And now then, Buddhism came to China as early as 60 AD, but didn't at that time make a very great impression. It was not until about the year 400 that a very great Sanskrit scholar by the name of Kumarajiva came and started teaching Chinese scholars Sanskrit. And they worked with him to translate Sanskrit into Chinese. And they translated the Buddhist scriptures. They didn't, of course, do them all at that time, because the Buddhist scriptures occupy about as much space as the Encyclopedia Britannica. In fact, a little more. The Indians are great talkers. Well, anyway, they found that when they translate this into Chinese, they had to find equivalent Chinese words for the Sanskrit ideas, and they found these from the Taoist philosophy. Well, slowly then, Indian attitudes began to be modified by Chinese attitudes, because the Chinese read into these translations Taoist meanings, so things got a little altered. Now here came the alteration that is crucial. First of all, in Indian Buddhism there's very little humor. But Chinese life is full of humor. The greatest philosopher of China, Zhuangzi, is the only philosopher who is, I think, in the whole world, who is profoundly humorous. There's a book in the Modern Library, published by Random House, called The Wisdom of Lao Tzu. And this is translated by Lin Yutang. And he includes, along with the translation of Lao Tzu, huge sections of Chuang-Tzu. And this is absolutely fascinating because of the humor of it. Indian Buddhism had very little humor. Some, yes, but very little. Next, it was all tied up with celibacy, which to the Chinese was absolutely incomprehensible. Because Chinese civilization is rigged around the family to a far greater extent than ours is, which is saying something. And they just couldn't see any point or any wisdom in celibacy. When Buddhism came to China, it still retained a certain element of celibacy, but for different reasons than Hindu. The Chinese way of celibacy is not that sex is naughty, but it's terribly convenient not to have a wife. In other words, the ideal of the uninvolved life has a certain appeal, but they could never get through into their heads the notion that sexual desire was bad, which has always played a fairly strong role in Hindu thinking. Not in the same way as it has in the West. The Hindus don't have a guilt take on it. But they think that it dissipates your spiritual energies. And you see, in yoga, they envisage the idea that at the base of the spine, there is what is called the kundalini, the serpent power, or the force of psychic energy. And so long as it remains at the base of the spine, this force is dissipated in sexuality. Now, yoga is to suck this thing up the spine and get it into the head. And so then you withdraw from the manifestation of this energy, or the dissipation of it, in sexuality, and it's put on a higher level. Only, which end is up. You can do it the other way too. They have what's called the right-hand way of doing it and the left-hand way of doing it. I'm not going to go into that now. But the Chinese didn't see it that way. They couldn't see that it was a dissipation of energy. So what they wanted to aim at was a way of living Buddhism and being awake, but at the same time remaining active in the ordinary life of the world. It's what's called, in their phraseology, being king on the outside and a sage on the inside. It has been well said that Buddhism is Hinduism stripped for export. You see, Hinduism is a way of life that goes far, far beyond what we in the West call religion. It involves cookery, everyday family life, house building, just everything. It's the whole Hindu way of life. And so you can't export it, just as you can't export Shinto from Japan. It belongs to the soil and the culture. But there are essential elements in it that can be transmitted outside the culture of India. Managing practical affairs, completely involved in whatever life is, but at the same time, inwardly living on top of a mountain, being cloud-hidden, whereabouts unknown. So, Chinese Zen is the preeminent expression of this, because it is the mixture of Indian Buddhism and Chinese Taoism, plus a certain Confucian practicality. Zen developed out of the work of Kumarajiva, came into China, as I said, 400 or a little before. And then you suddenly get into a kind of vertigo, dizziness, that you feel suddenly that you're no longer standing on the firm ground, but that the universe has suddenly turned into water, or worse, air, or worse still, empty space. There's nothing to hold on to. Now you see, often when one discusses religion with people, they say, well, I need a religion because I need something to hold on to. Well, that's the way not to use a religion. Because if you use religion as something to hold on to, your religion is an expression of unfaith. Faith is where you let go, not where you hold on. When the cat falls off the tree, the cat relaxes, you see. And so the cat lands with a soft thud and doesn't get hurt because the cat has faith. But if the cat in midair were suddenly to grab itself with all 4 feet and tighten up, see, it'd be hurt. And that's what people do when they say, rock of ages cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee. They want something to hold on to, you see. And that is unfaith. So the method of Buddhism, it's called the Dharma, doesn't mean the law, it means the method. The method is to knock the stuffing out of you, to take away everything to which you cling, to cleanse you completely of all beliefs, all ideas, all concepts of what life is about, so that you are completely let go. Doesn't, as it were, look over your shoulder and wander off to something else. Somebody who, first of all, he's completely here, and he's so much here that you can't phase him. Now, this idea of phasing is crucial in Zen. You see, I referred a moment ago to attachment, that Buddhism is living free from attachments. And I made the point that this is not abandoning a sense of a good appetite for dinner, but it's stopping sticking. In psychological jargon, you don't block. A mind of no hesitation, it's sometimes called. In Chinese, the phrase mo zhi chu is used, of going straight ahead. So supposing somebody walks up to you on the street and says, are you saved? Now, most of us who are intelligent people feel embarrassed by such a question. You know, what's this wretched Salvation Army person or Jehovah's Witness doing asking me whether I'm saved or not? You know, what do you do with a See? To the most embarrassing question, are you saved? But Zen comes back in a very funny way. In Zen, one doesn't give philosophical answers to a question like that. You give practical answers. I had a boiled egg this morning. Because whenever you are asked about matters sacred, theoretical and philosophical, you answer in terms of things earthy and practical. But then on the other hand, when you are asked about things earthy and practical, you answer in terms of things religious and philosophical. Is dinner ready? You know? Who's asking this question? Who are you? So, this is then the flavor of Zen, is, you know, Bodhidharma is supposed to have meditated so long that his legs fell off. And he's usually drawn this way, something like this anyway. It looks like a swoon. But in Japan, you buy these toys that are dharmas, and they are so weighted in here that you can never knock them over. You can bat it on the floor, bat it this way, bat it that way, but it always comes up again. And so the poem says, 7 times down, 8 times up, such is life. So this is the principle of not being fazed, not being attached. So to play the game, you can't faze me.
Okay, Elon Musk is live. I'm going to switch over to live streaming him. Oh, negative. Yeah, he is live. Here we go. $3,000 people in the room. Holy shit.
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Sweet. What's up?
Yeah, we were just doing intros. Do you want to go ahead? I did mine.
Yeah. For those that don't know me, or maybe for you, I'm Nick Fuentes. I'm a live streamer. I've been doing a show called America First for the past 8 years. And although I've been called a lot of things, and I don't know how much you've heard about me, or you know what your impression is about me or my views, I guess I would call myself a Catholic reactionary, American nationalist Catholic reactionary. It's probably best way to describe me. But yeah, I've been looking forward to the conversation, so I'm excited to be with you tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I am pretty familiar. You know, I come from a kind of 4chan background, so I've seen your come up. I'm not that super engaged in like the political scene, so I don't really know about some of the beasts that it seems I've accidentally waded into. That's what I was saying before you joined, but I have a general understanding of the white Christian coalition viewpoint that you come from. I'm mired in those politics. At least I've been around all those scenes and know a lot of the talking points there. How familiar are you with Milady and Remilia?
Not super familiar, honestly. I've heard about you guys for a long time, so I've been aware of you guys for a while. Someone that used to work for me actually is very into Milady and has been. And so I've seen it from them, and I know a lot of, or I should say maybe not a lot, but I'm aware of some groypers, some followers of mine who have a Milady, Avi, and I know you guys always say Remilio. I didn't understand until we talked what that was, and sometimes it's Remilio, and then it's Remilia, but I've been doing a little bit of research, and so I kind of have the gist. So Milady is the NFT. You made the Milady Maker under the Remelia Corporation. Do I have that right?
Yes. Yep. So far, so true.
And why do you say Remelio at the end of everything?
So Remelio is it's a sister collection or a brother collection, really. So Milady is the main one, and then we released Remelio. It's also an NFT, and they kind of represent a little bit two different tribes. The Remelio is the one that I think the Groypers and Remelio share some community crossover. It's a lot more into sort of juvenile shit posting, trolling, that kind of 4chan style fun, but on Twitter. Milady is also 4chan influenced, but it's a lot more aligned to cypherpunk values. It's strong commitments to like free speech, free information, free markets. Remelio is also a free speech maxi project, but it's a lot more in the way of like baiting people into saying retard or saying end towers and that kind of thing. And, a lot of shit posts or jokes inside the collection, like referencing QAnon or like the Trump campaign, that kind of ethos.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this. So, really, I don't have a problem with you. I don't really know you, and I don't have a problem with the Milady people. But to me, the crux of this conversation and why we're here is, and I think you actually posed the question. I think it's the right question. You said, why should anyone who is within 3 degrees of separation from Peter Thiel, why should they be canceled or blacklisted or something like that? And I think that is really and I wouldn't phrase it exactly that way. I don't think I am blacklisting or canceling people. At least I'm not trying to do that, and we could get into that. But I just want to make that clear at the beginning, and that was how you posed it. I wouldn't necessarily say it that way, but it's the relationship with Thiel and then the broader little tech PayPal mafia space, because of course Thiel, as well as some of these other elements, venture capital elements, they are backing a lot of these projects, which although they're not necessarily political per se, there is a lot of overlap with a political world. Like, for example, the Remelia after party, the Milady after party, following the Passage Press inauguration party. That's an example of the overlap. So let me ask you, because I know you do a lot of ironic stuff, and when I asked you, when I said, is this ironic, that sounded like a mic drop. You posted and said, oh, I got a Peter Thiel grant. And I said, was this ironic? And that sounded like a mic drop, like, oh yeah? But it was that ironic. So I guess as much as you're willing or comfortable to answer, can you clarify what your relationship is with? Because I don't think you work for Palantir. I think that's a troll. But what is the relationship that you have with Thiel, if you can speak on that?
Yeah, we don't have any. I've never met him. We've never taken. Remelia is entirely self-funded or crowdsourced through crypto. It's happened very publicly, with a lot of intent so that we could retain our autonomy. We've never taken private capital. I'm not exactly opposed to it. It's just something that we would only do when we can make sure that we can do so while we're maintaining our ideal. So we're very independent in that sense. I would love to take Peter Thiel even just $100 just so I could say that we did receive that money, because I think it's very funny, and that's exactly what we were memeing. Actually, if you look up that tweet, it's a pasta. It's not. We just put it. You can find 100 ladies having made that same post saying that they took money from Peter Thiel to. If you actually read it too, what it's saying is that Peter Thiel is giving us emails of tweets that we should retweet personally, like 20 to 30 tweets that he asked us to retweet. It's pretty clearly a joke.
Okay.
But the funny thing is, Nick, what I was so surprised is we were actually mocking libtards who had canceled us previously for other random associations. To add to the list, we've also done things with Praxis. They also get accused of being deal-backed. It's our native impulses to, just lean into it. If people are going to accuse us of things, just it's funny, and we're just going to mock them and put out bait to get fake cancels, like light a fire and just have a laugh. But what was surprising to me is I didn't even know there was a general